So, histories were rewritten to blame outsiders, traitors, or the will of the gods, while archives sealed away the records of miscalculation. Modern technology now allows us to revisit these moments with breathtaking clarity. It's a chilling reminder that history is not as distant as we think, and the line between dominance and downfall is far thinner than the monuments suggest, just waiting for that one moment when certainty outweighs wisdom and the mistake is already made. Empires often mistook scale for stability. It's a simple error, but it echoes through history. Looking at old maps, you see borders swell like a held breath, expanding relentlessly until they suddenly freeze. Why? Because leaders chose conquest over consolidation, believing that momentum itself was a form of security. But archaeology tells a different story. It uncovers the quiet failures, supply lines that stretched until they snapped, garrisons that starved hundreds of miles from home, and entire provinces left exposed. We've even found forbidden letters, messages from generals on the frontier warning that growth had outpaced control. They were dismissed as pessimists, their concerns brushed aside. To reverse course, to omit a limit, was seen as a sign of weakness, and for an empire, weakness was feared more than collapse itself. Even as the whole system groaned under its own impossible weight, the landscape is littered with the ghosts of this gamble. Lost cities, once thriving centers, became liabilities overnight. These weren't just abstract failures on a map. They were real places where people lived. Then, climate stress sharpened the blade. Cooling periods shortened harvests, and rising seas flooded crucial ports. But instead of adapting, administrations doubled down. They enforced uniform policies, demanding taxes and grain quotas designed for a climate that no longer existed. Archaeologists find evidence of sudden abandonment, not gradual decline. People weren't just fleeing war, they were fleeing policy. They were fleeing rulers who insisted that order would return if only it were enforced harder. This inflexibility, masquerading as strength, turned manageable stress into a complete rupture. Today, technology allows us to reconstruct these final moments with unsettling clarity. Sediment analysis, ancient pollen records, and digital modeling show how a single misjudged reform cascaded through food systems, trade networks, and public morale. Modern scholars can trace how one decree, one poorly chosen alliance, destabilized an entire region that was already vulnerable. Yet, for centuries, the official narratives blamed barbarians at the gates or betrayal from within. Acknowledging internal failure, admitting that the collapse was self-inflicted, threatened the very idea of legitimacy, even in retrospect. So, the mistake was mythologized, reframed as a heroic last stand or a tragic, unavoidable fate. Pride was preserved, but the lesson was buried. This suppression of truth became a tradition. As new empires rose from the ashes of the old, their leaders preferred glorious stories of inevitability to dusty records of error. Forbidden texta, ones detailing dissent, outlining reform proposals, or planning for contingencies were hidden or destroyed. This ensured that future rulers inherited all the confidence of their predecessors, but none of the caution. Archaeology shows us these repeating cycles, layered one on top of the other beneath modern capitals. Collapse wasn't an anomaly, it was a rhythm, driven again and again by the same fundamental mistake. The origin wasn't complex, only the consequences were. It was the simple choice of pride over adjustment, control over flexibility, and certainty over listening. Ancient maps tell a similar story, ending abruptly with unfinished borders and roads leading nowhere, capturing the exact instant when a correction was still possible. But pride slammed the door shut, locking the future into a narrow path toward failure. Once the legitimacy of the rulers fractured, the collapse picked up speed, often invisibly. Trade partners quietly withdrew. Local leaders stopped complying with central commands, and ordinary people simply started adapting on their own. Forbidden texts from these eras hint at emergency councils and last-minute reforms that were suppressed to maintain the illusion of control. Satellite imagery uncovers synchronized abandonment across vast regions, challenging the old idea of a slow, gradual decline. But how this story is told is still shaped by politics. What archaeology consistently shows is that the general population often understood the mistake long before their rulers did. They adapted locally, migrated to safer areas, and changed their practices. But authority punished this resilience, mistaking it for rebellion. This disconnect grew until the empire became irrelevant, a name without power. Fragmented ancient maps show new trade routes deliberately bypassing the old capitals, proving that collapse wasn't always destruction, but abandonment. People chose survival over allegiance, leaving monuments standing but powerless, symbols without systems. As we look at these silent landscapes, a final truth settles in. Empires don't fall because mistakes are made. They fall because those mistakes are protected, defended, and repeated. Today, as we face our own immense challenges, climate stress, technological acceleration, and political rigidity, the question hangs in the air. Will we recognize the moment to turn back before it passes? Or will history record our certainty as our final error, leaving behind ruins for future voices to decode, wondering why we didn't act when we still could? Thanks for watching. If this made you think, consider subscribing for more deep dives into history's biggest lessons.